Thank you for joining us, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to NSEN Sports. This is going to be a great show this evening. I'm Channing Martin. I'm here with my co-host.
I'm Clint Halford.
It's going to be a bumpy ride. The MTSU Blue Raiders try to get back on a winning track this weekend in South Florida. The Blue Raiders are coming off a disappointing loss to Louisiana Monroe last weekend in Murfreesboro. MTSU hopes to regain some confidence moving forward they developed by beating Georgia Tech 2 weeks ago in Atlanta. The Blue Raiders need to pound the ball with Bam Bam Cunningham early and often to carry the offense to a big victory in Miami. We need to build some momentum in order to have a chance to beat Mississippi State in Starksville next weekend. If the Blue Raiders get rolling, they still have a legitimate chance to win the Sun Belt title. The Blue Raiders play Florida International in Miami at 5 o'clock. Go Blue Raiders.
Thursday marks the beginning of the NHL season, except that the players and owners remain in a gridlock. Representatives for the league and the Players Union met Thursday in New York in an attempt to bridge more gaps that exist between the two parties. With the first 2 weeks of the regular season already canceled, NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman, Deputy Commissioner Bill Daly, and union representatives met both on Wednesday and on Thursday. Players say they remain united to work for a deal, but many players have already signed overseas contracts.
The comeback kids by the Bay live to fight another day. The Oakland Athletics scored 3 runs in the bottom of the 9th inning, sending their series against the Detroit Tigers to tonight's decisive Game 5. The A's have won 2 straight home games while facing elimination. A's center fielder Coco Crisp made a sensational defensive play that led to a victory Tuesday night. Lightning struck twice when Crisp singled in the winning run, sparking last night's miraculous victory. The A's will throw Jared Parker, one of their young pitching stars, against the Tigers' ace and last year's Cy Young winner Justin Verlander. The do-or-die Game 5 starts at 8:30 tonight on TBS.
Last Monday night's episode of WWE Raw became a little too real for one fan. During the conclusion of the live television event, WWE Champion CM Punk retreated into the stands. As he stood in the crowd facing WWE's COO Vince McMahon in the ring, several fans proceeded to push the champion in the back. Unaware of the identity of the pusher, Punk lashed out with a back fist, catching an unassuming fan behind him. The fan refused to press criminal charges, but has alluded to a possible civil lawsuit. The WWE has issued an apology, both by CM Punk and themselves.
There's going to be a showdown in the Bayou on Saturday night between 2 great coaching minds. Steve Spurrier leads the number 3 ranked South Carolina Gamecocks into Death Valley, the most hostile environment in the country, to face the 10th ranked LSU Bayou Bengals. The Gamecocks are coming off a very impressive win over the Georgia Bulldogs last weekend in Columbia. The Bayou Bengals are coming off a hard-fought loss to the Florida Gators last week in the Swamp. Steve Spurrier and Les Miles are not conventional coaches and are both known for their trickery and deception. The Old Ball coach and the Mad Hatter will face off in this week's Game of the Week, Saturday at 8 o'clock in Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
The Middle Tennessee State University's men's tennis team is one of the bright spots on campus. Their overall record is 25-15 singles and 7-6 doubles. Ettore Zito is leading the way with a record of 6-1, with 2 others following close at 5-2. Zito was on a 3-match winning streak, but did not qualify for next week's match. Ben Davis, on the other hand, has a record of 4-3 in singles and 3-2 in doubles with partner Christopher Lang. Davis has qualified for next week's match, which is the ITA Regionals in Memphis, Tennessee.
The Middle Tennessee State Blue Raiders will look to continue their win streak. The Blue Raiders women's soccer team is currently on a 6-game win streak after a 2-0 victory on Saturday. This streak started on September 21st with a 5-0 win over Arkansas Little Rock. The Blue Raiders are currently in first place in the Sun Belt Conference with a record of 6-0. They will look to push their win streak to 7 when they play the Troy Trojans tomorrow.
After becoming the Western Conference champs and giving the Heat a challenge in the finals, it would appear that the Oklahoma City Thunder have the pieces to the puzzle. But with the October 31st deadline approaching, James Harden may be out of the mix. Harden averaged 16.8 points and 3.7 assists and earned recognition as the league's best bench player last season, but now the OKC just can't handle the luxury tax it takes to keep Harden on board. Harden says he will agree to sign the contract and that he just wants to focus on hooping and not all the negotiations. He is confident that his agent and the organization will get it done.
4 NFL players have heard new rulings from the commissioner. NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell has made new rulings on the Saints' bounty penalties. Cleveland Browns linebacker Scott Fujita has had his 3-game suspension reduced to 1, while the defensive end Anthony Hargrove's previous 8-game suspension has been trimmed to 7. The commissioner has decided to reinstate New Orleans Saints defensive end Will Smith's 4-game suspension, and Saints linebacker Jonathan Vilma has also had his season-long suspension reinstated.
Kobe Bryant is not calling it quits just yet, but he definitely isn't shying away from speaking about his future retirement plans. Now that Nash and Howard are in place to be the new force behind the Los Angeles Lakers, Kobe says after the 2013-2014 season, it may be time to retire and move on. Kobe has had a very successful 16-year run in the NBA, and in these next 2 years, he will surely surpass Wilt Chamberlain and Michael Jordan in scoring points and hopefully seek his 6th NBA title. When asked what he will do after retirement, he said he plans to handle it as his former coach Phil Jackson did. He will stay in the moment, appreciate each day as it comes, and have more fun.
One of the NFL's top defenses will have to look to others for leadership. The Houston Texans will now be without linebacker Brian Cushing for the rest of the season. Cushing had his ACL torn after a low block in Monday's win over the Jets. Cushing has led the Texans defense with 29 tackles this season. Coach Gary Kubiak says that Tim Dobbins is the #1 option for replacing Cushing this season.
Welcome back to Fans Favorites. I'm Hunter Fan, and I have a healthy dose of NFL matchups coming your way. I've been doing my homework all week long just so you can look like a gridiron genius when you're talking about football to your friends. You guys know the drill, so let's just get this show on the road. We're almost a third of the way through the NFL season, and so far it's been full of surprises. Weeks 1 through 3 gave us an appreciation for the normal referees after the replacement refs completely sabotaged several games, mostly stemming from the Monday night fiasco between the Packers and Seahawks. We've learned the Texans and Falcons are for real, and that nothing sure changed in Cleveland. That being said, let's get into my picks for Week 6. Last year's NFC Championship game against the New York Giants will forever haunt Coach Harbaugh and the 49ers. A couple miscues, including a fumble on a punt return in the fourth quarter and another fumble on a punt return in overtime, eventually sealed the deal for the Giants. This weekend, Harbaugh and his squad will be able to seek revenge in this highly anticipated matchup at home against the Giants. The Giants have an explosive offense, and Manning is having one of the best seasons of his career, but the 49ers have just as good of an offense, if not better. The 49ers have outscored their last 2 opponents 79-3. But the big difference in this matchup is going to be on defense. The Niners defense is ranked 2nd in yards per game allowed and ranks 1st in points allowed. The Giants are having a tough time on defense this year, especially stopping the pass. Therefore, I'm taking the 49ers to win this game 24-17 and improve to 5-1 on the season. One of the biggest surprises this season has to be the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings are tied for first place in the NFC North along with the Chicago Bears, and I think it's safe to say that no one saw that coming, especially after the Packers' last 2 seasons. The 4-9 Vikings are hosting the Washington Redskins this week, and I expect it to be a good game. It'll be interesting to see Minnesota's sophomore QB Christian Ponder duke it out with Redskins rookie quarterback Robert Griffin III. Both these guys were drafted high in their drafts and have had high expectations coming from their coaches and owners. RG3's had a fantastic start to his rookie season, but got a little shaken up a bit last week playing the undefeated Falcons. Griffin was hit hard on a play trying to run for the first down and left the field with a concussion, but coaches say he's probable for this weekend's game. It's hard to tell if he's ready mentally to get back out there and keep his composure in the pocket, especially going against a nasty defensive line like the Vikings have. That front 4 of Minnesota, led by Jared Allen, is ruthless when it comes to getting after the quarterback, and I think that's going to play a crucial role in Sunday's game. So I'm taking the Vikings to win this one 31-14. The undefeated Atlanta Falcons are hosting the Oakland Raiders this weekend, and I expect it to get ugly. The Raiders are terrible, especially on D, and the Falcons have arguably the best offense in the league right now. Matt Ryan is going to have a field day Sunday against that sloppy defense. The Raiders have given up 30-plus points in all but 1 game this season, and the Falcons have too many weapons on offense not to exploit that. I think the Georgia Dome is going to get a little rowdy this weekend when the Falcons beat the Raiders 35-10 and improve to 6-0. Before the season started, I would have told you I couldn't wait to see the Texans and Packers match up. However, the Green Bay Packers season isn't turning out quite like we all expected. The Packers only lost once during the regular season last year and have already lost 3 times this season. Oh, and we're just now approaching week 6. The Packers still have a high-powered offense, but the Texans are allowing less than 200 passing yards a game. The Texans have slowly been climbing the ladder to the NFL's elite. This year, the Texans are top 5 in almost every defensive category and only allow 14 points a game. My boy Arian Foster is proving to be one of the league's best running backs, as well as one of the best free agent signings in history. The man somehow went undrafted, if you didn't know. I expect Foster to have a 100-yard-plus game. I just don't think the Packers are going to have an answer for him. Even though they lost their defensive captain and tackles leader Brian Cushing last week for the rest of the season, I think their defense is too stout to start slacking off. Coach Gary Kubiak has his players believing in his system, and they definitely have some great leaders on that team. Therefore, I'm taking the Texans 35-24 over Packers in Houston to keep that winning streak going. Thanks for tuning in to Fans Favorites here on NSEN. I'm Hunter Fan. Make sure to tune back in next week and each and every week for all your NFL info.
Coming into week 6 in the NFL, you can get your measuring stick out because there's a lot to be learned. For instance, Andrew Luck and how the rookie has already come into fruition. And even Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay, he's nothing special if his front 5 can't protect. And the New York Football Giants looks like they're well equipped to contend for yet another Super Bowl trophy. Let's not talk too much about Michael Vick, but the man has got to protect the ball, especially near the red zone. You're better than that. Atlanta Falcons are flying high once again. An offensive force like that is a reason enough to crown them division winners today. As far as favorites go, I don't see how you wouldn't consider Chicago in the forefront of that conversation. The Vikings also are still chalking it up in the left column, and Percy Harvin looks to be the most complete player thus far. Denver also is still struggling in the first half against good teams, but if Peyton is who we all remember him to be, he'll have the solution in no time. Tom Brady, that guy, has more time in the pocket than Bobby Valentine did with the Red Sox. And for San Francisco, well, they defeated another opponent by 30 points, the first time since 1961 it's been done for that franchise. And also, how can we forget the Saints? They might be struggling, but Drew Brees for sure isn't. A sure Hall of Famer, no surprise there. Week 7, though, presents a lot more to learn. Flacco and Romo will square off. The Packers get a chance to knock off the unbeaten Texans, and for one to look for a rematch for the NFC Championship, Giants 49ers should be another great week of football. For NSEN Sports, I'm Justin Beasley.
The Blue Raiders are under some major heat to win as homecoming did not turn out the way it was intended. The confidence isn't the same as before the loss to Louisiana Monroe Saturday. However, there were some key points the Blue Raiders could use to build off of during the game against Florida International. Junior linebacker Roderick Blunt intercepted ULM quarterback Colton Browning's pass out of the shotgun formation and ran in back for a big gain in the first quarter. This led to Middle Tennessee's quarterback Logan Kilgore taking the snap from the shotgun. Kilgore handed it off to running back Benny Cunningham for his first touchdown while breaking multiple tackles. Cunningham also scored the only other Blue Raider touchdown with a rush diving over the line at the beginning of the fourth quarter. Cunningham will surpass 1,400 yards in his career rushing this weekend, and it will be needed for ULM held MTSU to 70 yards last week. Kilgore has a chance to break 4,000 yards passing in just his 20th career game. The Blue Raiders also need help by paying attention on the field and not causing so many crucial penalties and allowing so many third down conversions. The game is in Miami, Florida, with the kickoff at 5 p.m. Changing topics to baseball, the divisional series is wrapping up over the next 2 days. The National League San Francisco Giants are the first teams to clinch the division, defeating the Cincinnati Reds 3-2. 2 more series are going on either in Game 4s or 5s today. The National League's Washington Nationals defeated the St. Louis Cardinals after Jason Worth blasted a game-winning home run. The American League Baltimore Orioles takes on the New York Yankees in Game 4, and the Tigers take on the surprising Oakland A's, who survived last night to force a Game 5. The Championship Series round begins Saturday for the American League and Sunday for the National League. One of NASCAR's biggest names will not be racing for the next few weeks. Dale Earnhardt Jr. has been sidelined by doctors for concussion-related symptoms stemming from last week's big one at Talladega Superspeedway. Junior has been ruled out for the next two races, which are Charlotte Motor Speedway, the home field of most of the teams, and Kansas Speedway next weekend. Junior's won this season at Michigan International Raceway, ending his winless streak, which was 143 races. He also has the fourth longest active starting streak with 461 consecutive. Regan Smith will take over the 88 Amped Energy Chevrolet this weekend.
This weekend, the Ultimate Fighting Championship returns to Brazil for the first time since UFC 143 in June. While that show was moved from Rio de Janeiro, this will still be the UFC's third event from HSBC Arena since August of 2011. It will also mark the third main event in the country for native Brazilian and UFC middleweight champion Anderson the Spider Silva as he takes on the American Psycho Stephan Bonnar. Silva stepped into the main event after the previous main event involving featherweight champion Jose Aldo was canceled due to an injury to the champion's foot. This will be the middleweight champion's third fight at a higher weight class. He previously defeated James Irvin and Ultimate Fighter Season 1 winner Forrest Griffin at the 205-pound weight limit. In this fight, the Spider will look to increase his UFC record win streak to 16 consecutive wins. Bonnar is on a 3-fight win streak coming into the fight, though that dates back to a win in 2010. He's best known for his classic fight in the first season of The Ultimate Fighter, where he came up short against Forrest Griffin. He's also filled in as a color commentator on the UFC's events on the Fox network. It's hard not to see Silva as the overwhelming favorite in this fight. According to Fight Metric, which tracks fighter statistics, Silva has an incredible 67% striking accuracy, which is the best in the entire UFC. Also sports a 78% rate of takedown success. This shows Brazilian fighters in every main show match, and one of the most famous is the heavyweight Antonio Rodrigo Nogueira. The fighter, known as both Big Nog and Minotauro, is in the semi-main event facing Dave Pee Wee Herman. Both men are physically a match for each other, but I think Nogueira has a huge experience edge. Add to that his home field advantage, fighting in front of his home country, and Big Nog looks like a big favorite. The original semi-main event involved fan favorite Quinton Rampage Jackson taking on Glover Teixeira in a light heavyweight contest. However, when Jackson pulled out due to an elbow injury, the UFC moved Brazilian boxer Fabio Maldonado into that match. Maldonado is on a 2-fight skid, but is still a very dangerous fighter, landing 66% of his significant strikes in all 3 of his UFC fights to date. This should be an exciting fight that could earn the winner knockout of the night honors. The third light heavyweight fight on the card is a rematch. Back in August, Wagner Prado received an accidental eye poke from Phil Davis. After he was unable to continue, the fight was ruled a no contest, and the pair were set on a path to a rematch. That rematch is at UFC 153, as the two attempt to settle what was started on the last UFC on Fox event. Their last fight only lasted about 90 seconds, which didn't allow Prado to use his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu skills and try to take Davis down to the mat. This could still pose a problem, as Davis sports an impressive 71% rate against takedowns, a benefit of his amateur wrestling credentials from Penn State, where he was an All-American. Davis is the favorite in this match mostly due to his experience inside the octagon. 2 welterweight fights will fill out the main card for this UFC show. The first sees John Fitch take on Eric Silva. Fitch, who sports one of the better winning percentages in the 170-pound weight division, uses his wrestling ability to land nearly 4 takedowns per fight. Silva, in comparison, has great submission ability and has lost only once in his 3 UFC fights. That loss came as a result of a disqualification, as Silva struck his opponent in the back of the head. This fight doesn't have the knockout capability of other matches on the fight card, but it should be a clinic on submission fighting and wrestling. The other welterweight fight pits Brazilian Damian Maia against American Rick Story. Story's a wrestler and a kickboxer, who's racked up several wins in the welterweight division, but he may be outmatched against Maia. He's a great submission wrestler, holding many tournament victories in international competition, as well as 4 Submission of the Night awards from his UFC fights. That said, this is still only Maia's second fight in the welterweight division, and his first fight at this weight ended when his opponent suddenly suffered a severe muscle spasm, ending the fight. While Maia doesn't have that much experience at this weight, he's still arguably the more dangerous fighter. This looks like one of the more exciting fight cards in recent memory, and should produce some great fights. Add to that the always loudly Brazilian crowd in Rio de Janeiro cheering on their home country heroes, and it could make for a memorable night. All of these fights will be on pay-per-view, but as always, the UFC will be offering their preliminary fights live both on Facebook and on FX. That's it from Inside the Cage. Back to you.
Thanks, Clint. Welcome to the Draft Spotlight. I'm Jordan Taylor, and today we'll be looking at 2 top-tier quarterbacks, Matt Barkley from USC and Geno Smith from West Virginia. First, let's take a look at Matt Barkley. Barkley is a 6'2", 230-pound senior Barkley has had a pretty good season so far, throwing for just over 1,300 yards and 15 touchdowns. One advantage that Barkley has is that he runs the pro-style offense at USC. This will give Barkley an advantage because he will go into the NFL with the knowledge of how to run an offense that most teams run. The next player we're going to take a look at is quarterback Geno Smith. Smith is a 6'3", 214-pound senior from West Virginia. Smith is the early season front-runner for the Heisman in most people's eyes. This season, he has thrown for nearly 2,000 yards and 24 touchdowns. However, Smith's most impressive stat is that he has yet to throw a pick on 204 attempts. One disadvantage Smith has to Barkley is that he runs the spread offense at West Virginia. However, we've recently seen quarterbacks such as Cam Newton and Robert Griffin have success in the NFL coming from the spread system. We'll continue to watch both of these quarterbacks as they try to improve their draft stock for April.
Thanks for tuning in, guys. Same time next week. Don't miss it. I'm Channing Martin.
I'm Clint Halford.
Go Blue Raiders.